I never would have guessed that I would be a content creator, but I guess I was in yearbook in high school, which was kind of, that was social media back in the day because we had captions and pictures.
We are surrounded by content. Content shapes who we follow, how we lead, what we buy, and even what we believe. Welcome to the Content Generation Podcast, a class intercom production where we focus on the stories that come to life in schools all over the world. We highlight the students, educators, and communities who share the content that shapes our future. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Jill, today we're joined with Andrea Gribbel, and she just released her book, which has a lot of really useful information for folks in school PR and school communications that are having to do social media. I know you've checked it out. Thoughts, impressions?
Mm-hmm. Well, I love Andrea, and I love that she asked me to be a pre-reader in her book. I think it's such a just fantastic compilation of her work, so practical, just hands-on on tips, and she is everyone's cheerleader. She proclaims that, and that really comes through in her voice in the book. It's just very authentically Andrea, so it makes it a fun and informative read.
Yeah, well, she highlights so many different areas. Obviously, in the book, she's got lots of stories, lots of practical examples, which is fantastic. So check it out. We'll get some links out to the book and to how to find Andrea. But she's been everywhere in school communications and is working with a lot of schools, actually helping do some of that social media. But really, I think is an advocate for that student voice component that we're so passionate about.
Definitely. She's all about getting that point of view out there and helping create the future public relations specialists of the world.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you to listen to our conversation with Andrea Gribbel. Welcome, Andrea Gribbel. It is so great to have you on the Content Generation Podcast. We're back. We're talking about school PR, communications, social media, and really exciting, Andrea, you've written a book and published that since the last time I was with you. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, great to be here. Yes, it's been kind of a whirlwind school year that we're starting to wrap up, but a lot to be excited about over here. So.
Awesome. Well, it's good to be with you. It's always been fun hanging out at Spraz with you, connecting on how the family's doing, how things are happening in Wisconsin, Minnesota, all of the places that you're spending a lot of time in. But then really to get a lot of the feel for why you do what you do and the craft of social media in school communications. Obviously, I'm a fan of yours and the rest of our team here. I mentioned to them that we were chatting today, so everybody's hyped. They can see you through the window. Well, actually, they can see me through the window. But Andrea, it's fun to have you on here. I would love to get a little bit of your history. So I certainly listen to your podcast, but would love to get a little bit of the history of how you ended up in school PR, specifically helping with social media. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was an interesting story. And I just told it today, actually, to a group of social media marketing students, which I know, Class Intercom does a ton with students. So it was really fun to be able to share not only my journey, but some of my business and engagement tips and things like that for social media. But I'm kind of here accidentally, Ben. I was a chemistry major, which totally makes sense that I now do social media.
Of course.
I was kind of a math and science nerd. And so I went to school for chemistry and business, got my MBA, and started working in the corporate world, where I worked for 13 and a half years and I worked my way up. And back in 2013, right before Thanksgiving, I walked into work and was met by the operations manager. And I was just like, okay, actually VP of operations. And I was like, okay, I know what this means. Like, I am going to be let go because I've had to do that a lot as a manager. So I found out my job had been eliminated. I was a single mom with 2 little girls with a mortgage, and so I was scared. I was mad and I was scared and I was all the feelings, but I did not waste any time. I started networking right away and started applying for jobs. And I actually started doing a little bit of work with a friend's wife who ran a catering business. And she said, Andrea, business owners are so busy running their business, like they don't really have time to do social media. Maybe you could help me out with that. So I'm like, awesome. I love social media. Never went to school for it, but I'm willing to dig in. So I just got started with doing social media for a caterer and a photographer and an accountant. And it was when I was in that the superintendent at my small little school district in New Auburn, he reached out, and it's really cool because I actually just made a donation to his school and sent him his
Oh,
book. He it was his like invitation to say, "Hey, we need help with social media. I heard you're doing something with social media. Why don't you come and try to launch Facebook and Twitter and Instagram here at the school?" And I was like, awesome, because my girls go to school there. I was an alumni. I knew there were great things happening. So he really gave me my first shot, and I launched kind of a trial program back in 2014. I still manage the social media for that school district today. So after 9 years, I am still the one that's putting things out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And
hmm.
I made a mistake today because I copied from an old post, Ben. And instead of reply like an RSVP by May 10th, it said February 22nd. And I was like, oh my gosh, I use the hand. I use the hand over my face emoji a lot,
Love it.
you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, I fixed it quick, but I've made all the mistakes
Yeah.
that you guys are worried about making. I've made them all, and continue to, because we're human.
Yeah.
But anyways, I loved the work, and then I
Hmm.
found out other schools needed help as well. And Brian Henning, he invited me to a superintendent conference, and I got my second school and my third school, and it's been quite a road of selling my house and moving in with my parents with two little girls, and kind of all of the things, depression, anxiety, all of the
Hmm.
stuff that goes with it. However, I am so blessed because I have the best job, which is to cheer on all of these schools and celebrate the great things that are happening with our teachers, with our students, with our leaders, with our bus drivers. And I've just really dedicated myself to that for the past 9 years, and I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember I met you on the floor of the kind of exhibition hall when we were in DC at NSPRA for the first time. We had a quick chat there, and I remember sort of understanding that you were doing some things with social media and really involved with a bunch of schools, but I really didn't know much at that time. And it's been fun to get your heart and really, having caught up with you over some dinners, I heard some of this story, but you sort of every time it feels like I've learned something new. I've got a new nugget kind of coming out of things that were part of that story of just learning, that I think desperation at which you were approaching schools and also really drove you. So that's really fun to see how that's progressed over time from something that was a necessity to something that really feels like it's been your calling.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like I was born to do this. I am kind of that natural cheerleader. And, we do full social media management we just signed our 87th school district. So we work with a lot of
Wow.
schools. I have a team of stay at home moms that are incredible. I just have surrounded myself with amazing people like you have at Class Intercom. That's really what has made us so successful. But then I also lead this membership group that, where I get to teach and encourage, and I just love it when those people just start to blossom as leaders within their own school as that
Mhm.
head cheerleader, but that everybody needs to be a part of that, right? And Class Intercom has an awesome tool to make that very easy for students and staff to be part of that. And then I do a lot of, just general teaching of what works with social media. And it's just fun to play a small role in knowing that you are helping reach thousands and thousands of people daily with the stories that they're able to tell on social media.
Yeah. Do you have any? I want to get to the book here in a bit, but first, as you're working in this industry, really documenting and learning a lot of what's happened in social media, and you referenced you get to get that story out to so many people. What is it about that getting the story out that's really driven you to be really a leader in this industry?
Well, I think it comes from just the fact that I'm a mom. I have 6 kids, so I've got 2 daughters and I've got 4 stepsons. And back when I started this, they were very young, you know. I think my
Mm,
youngest was kindergarten or 1st grade, and now she's in high school, so it's crazy to think. But they don't tell their parents, like my kids didn't tell me what they did at school today. "What did you do
yeah,
at school today?" Nothing. I know you did awesome things, you know,
yeah,
and I knew in our small little school district where we're competing against school districts that are only 8-10 miles away
mm,
because of open enrollment in many states. And it certainly is here in Minnesota and Wisconsin. But we're competing, and nobody realizes these incredible opportunities that we have, these amazing tech ed programs and robotics class, and these kids that are creating like Google slide presentations. Back in the day it was PowerPoint, now it's
yeah.
Google slide presentations in like 1st grade, and it's so cool. And so to me, I just took that lens of a parent of not knowing any of that which was going on, but knowing that people have these in their phones, what for better or worse. We have these cell phones in our hands. Why not give the people something really positive to see? Why not show our kids that social media can be something really positive? And I know as
Mm,
you're listening to this, Ben, you and Jill would be saying the same exact thing because you preach this, to the schools you partner with. But it's just like there are so many stories to be told if we can just encourage and build the systems and do it in the right way. You don't have to be scared.
yeah.
It can be scary, and you have to be ready for that negativity or those challenges, but it's totally possible. And so I really love the fact that I get to be part of that positive spin that we can
Mm,
get those stories out on social media.
mm. Love that. So, so you came from doing social media, helping, teaching, all of those sorts of aspects of social media, to now writing a book. What was the inciting incident that caused you to start writing this book?
Well, the problem that I have, and I'm sure you guys do too, is, in any given podcast episode, in any given webinar, in any given blog that I write, you cannot get the whole entire system and all of the tricks and strategies and all of that into 1 hour or one article or one podcast interview. And I've known that I've wanted to assemble a guide
Hmm,
for schools to be able to hold in their hand, have at their desk, and know that they can turn to for, creating that system and building that brand, and really talking about storytelling and how do you do that on social media. Because most schools get it wrong from not having the right system and not having enough time to do it all.
hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, the tagline of my book, and I have a really unique name for my book, Ben. It's called Social Media for Schools. So, and then the byline is proven storytelling strategies and ideas to celebrate your students and staff while keeping your sanity. And I have seen over the 9 years so many amazing storytellers, amazing communicators get burnt out
Hmm,
because social media can feel like a 24/7 job. So it really is my passion and my mission to make sure that we can tell these stories, but also have some work life harmony so that we can be the best for our students and our staff and our families and ourselves and our friends,
mhm.
Um, so that was really the driving force behind wanting to put this book together. I nearly broke during it because it was a lot of work. But I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I made it. And I'm super proud of the way that it turned out and how helpful it's going to be for schools all over the country and really all over the world.
Well, and I know you had a lot of other people that were cheering you on during this process. One of which wrote your forward, Joe Sanfilippo. Huge respect to Joe and everything he's done. How did that come about, and how did that help?
Well, Joe was my first mentor. So
Mm.
one thing that I will never be called, Ben, is shy. So you know what? I believe, and I was successful in school. Maybe not because I was the smartest person, but I surround myself with really smart people, and I know how to ask for help. And I wasn't afraid. And when Brian Henning welcomed me in, he's like, "Well, maybe Joe will kind of tell you what he does at Fall Creek." And so I went in and knew nothing. And he was nice enough to be like, "Yeah, come over. It's only about a 40-minute drive from New Auburn." So actually, where he lives is very close to where I am. So it's crazy because he's known all around the country,
Sure.
probably all around the world. But he welcomed me in, and I just said, "I got this idea, and this is what I'm doing with New Auburn." And, he's like, I think it might be able to work, and you might, well, now they're a client, Ben. We manage their social media for them. And we've really been able to even elevate the storytelling that they're doing there. But he's just a great guy. He's got a ton of energy. And his mantra was kind of the same. Like, I might not be, when he got his job, I might not be the best superintendent, but I'm going to be the loudest. And their school board said, "We know there's really great things happening here, but not everybody knows." And so he made it his mission, and has done that over the past, I think, about 12 years, really proven that storytelling works. And so I've gotten to learn from him, and he's continued to cheer me on. And I'm so thankful that he was kind enough to write about that day when I came in his office and started asking him questions. It's really been a journey, and I'm so fortunate.
Well, I want to dive into a little bit of storytelling. It's one of the core themes, obviously, of your book. It's one of our pillars of pedagogy, as we talk about here at Class Intercom. But I'd love to understand a little bit of what do you like to educate on about storytelling? What are the things that you're putting in your book about how we can be better at storytelling?
Well, there's a whole section on storytelling. The chapters are all like getting and organizing content ideas, stories to share, and what to skip because you shouldn't share everything. Just how to manage the content. And then a big one for you guys, staff and student takeovers, getting that voice of it's not just from one person, right? You can have people take over. They can do Instagram stories, they can create Instagram reels, and they can make posts. So I think the big thing is, sometimes we get intimidated by the word story, and we're like,
Hmm.
"Ooh, I don't want to tell a story." Like, when you were in class, you were
Sure.
like, "How long does it have to be?" Right? That was your first question. And luckily in social media, it can be really short. Those stories are really those moments that are happening every day in your school and outside of your school that just need to be captured, whether it be a short video or a short or a picture, right? We need to capture those moments when they happen, and then we can't be afraid to share them, and put those out there. And there are a lot of tricks as far as how to write an engaging way. And, you want to build likes and comments and shares because that ultimately leads to more eyeballs because the algorithm likes that interaction. But, those stories from the heart, those recognition, those little moments of one of our one of our best posts on one of our schools was a little boy wearing a Favre jersey, and then was when he was with the Packers, and
Yeah.
then like a jersey from the Vikings, and they were holding hands, and it was like all these lessons that our kids can teach us. Those stories and those moments are happening in every school, but are we taking the time to tell them? And it literally can take 30 seconds of somebody's time. But we've got to build this army of storytellers around us, because if you've got one communications person or one principal that is in your building that's in charge of social media, like Jill was back, if you've
Yeah.
only got that one lens, you're going to miss a whole lot. So we've really got to get everybody involved in telling those stories, and then scheduling them out at the right time with the right language, with emojis. I mean, there's all of those elements that go in. And of course, now you are big on AI has really been helping me write some more engaging posts. You got to be careful because sometimes it's a little bit too much. But it can help you with get the creative juices flowing, give you a good first draft. and help you tell better stories.
What do you think separates a great storyteller from somebody who's an okay storyteller?
Well, when it evokes emotion and then you
Mm,
can relate to what's happening instead of like, "Hey, the kids made applesauce today." Okay, but like, "Hey, do you remember when your kids made applesauce today? They," and you add in some detail.
mm,
Sometimes you're adding in a quote from one of the students. Like, we had one post where they were outside. Of course, we're up here in the Northwoods, right? And so in the winter, it's beautiful. And one of the students was like, "This was the best school day of my entire life." And that's powerful. That's
yeah.
those are those moments that you care about. It doesn't have to be a long, quote. It can be short things, but you're really capturing what's happening in those classrooms, outside of those classrooms. Um and then not being afraid of perfection, because I think
Mm,
sometimes you can like rethink it and re-strategize it and double guess, second guess yourself. We just got to get the story told. So
mm,
sometimes it's going to be awesome, and sometimes you're going to share a story and you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to reach a million people. This is so incredible," and it'll tank. And then you'll share something else that you think is just not even a big deal, and people love it and they start commenting. And so you just really never know. Social media is kind of always changing, but don't be afraid to get those stories out there.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, I like the themes that you're highlighting. Fear, right, is one of those reasons why we don't tell stories. Captivating with emotion, building and moving through story are fantastic examples. So, yeah, I love hearing about some of those. Um, as you were writing your book, one of the things you have sprinkled throughout your book is case studies and examples of lots of different schools who are telling stories. Are there any that come to mind when you say this is a way that a school told a story that was impactful, or it really engaged people in a unique way?
Yeah, now you're putting me on the spot and I've got to find this. So every chapter begins with a case study. And I've learned so much from people in the trenches. I mean, yes, I'm in the
Mm,
trenches a little bit, but I don't work in a school. So I think that's really powerful. I mean, I'm just opening up a chapter to Holly McCaw. She is out of Michigan. You probably know her. She's in leadership, and she just handling negativity, and she remembers, it's she's the person that puts it out there, but it's not just her, right? And
mm,
learning to have a thick skin, and then in some cases turning a negative into a positive. So it's just really made her a better communicator and really increased the trust and transparency that the school has been able to have. We're really careful now on what we put out on social media in the first place. Not everything belongs on social media, but that's just one of the stories. I mean, there are so many leaders, and Jerry Alamaderis, he's a superintendent at Santa Ana Unified, and he has really, encompassed this storytelling mode where he has everybody be part of the storytelling method. So I just and then there's little stories within each chapter. I think we feature about 50 different school either storytellers, superintendents, principals. We feature over 50 stories throughout the book, which is really helpful because stories help us learn, which is also, I mean,
mm.
that's the powerful part about social media and stories, right? You tell somebody that, "Oh my gosh, we increased our math scores by blah, blah, blah." No, instead you share this picture of this little boy that's beaming because, oh my gosh, he just mastered his multiplication facts, and because they're learning through this game. That's much more powerful, and it shows that kids are enjoying learning versus just muttering off a bunch of facts.
Mm, mm. I sent one of our team members just Friday, went out to a client location to just get a story, from this leader, and she calls me on the way back, and she's a former English teacher, and she says, "Hey, you wouldn't believe, like, here's the story, and here's all of the," and really what captivated her was the story, right, and then being able to dig that out, to find the hard things that are in those stories to surface, and then for us to get to tell that. So Yeah, I think it's so important the work you're doing around that. And you're encouraging so many school PR folks, which is also hugely encouraging. You talked a little bit about burnout, and obviously, content creation can lead to burnout, right? Like there's just a formula there that we've got to sort of figure out, right, amongst ourselves and figure out how to support each other in that. I know you've been highly supportive of a lot of school PR folks. How are you seeing that play out? With some of the latest in social media, how are you seeing that play out on your team? Any tips or advice on that?
Yeah, well, most of my team is stay-at-home moms, and a lot of them they have young kids, so they're kind of working things around having kids around and all of that. I think having a schedule and kind of knowing when you plan to post things and knowing everything doesn't have to be in the moment. Yes, sometimes it's really nice to be able to go live at an event or to have stories go up right while it's happening, but it doesn't all have to be that way. We really suggest, some standard times of posting. So we do 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. If we have more stuff, we'll post it at lunch, and then pickup time is a really good time, like 30 minutes
Hmm.
before pickup time, because you've got all those parents in line waiting for their kids to get out of school. And of course, they're scrolling their phone. So why not check out what's happening at the school? Um, I think that is really important.
Times to post and sort of time boxing. That's one of the strategies we try to do too. Is like if you need time to create, is just kind of block out. If you've got an hour where you're blocking out to do content, as opposed to sort of just sprinkling it all throughout your day. That
Yes.
seems to
Yeah,
be
because
better.
that's when mistakes happen, right? That's when the mistake where I put February 22nd instead of May 10th on a post, I'm doing it in the middle. If you can block your time, I call it batching.
Hmm.
And really, blocking some time ahead, batching in regards to batching out features that you can schedule ahead of time, because like right within Meta Business Suite, and I'm sure within Class
Yeah.
Intercom, you
Yeah.
can schedule out way 10 weeks in advance, right?
Yeah.
So really trying to set some time aside, put your phone away, don't put it on do not disturb, don't check your email, and set your alarm for like 30 minutes, because I'm a big, like, I like competition, so a competition even with myself. So it's like 30 minutes, I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to get these 5, 6 Throwback Thursday posts, scheduled of these old pictures of yearbooks. And then you can feel good because you have those set up for the next 5 Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. Those are going to go out. But I think, on the day-to-day stuff, to have a time set aside that you're going to, you're going to work on things, because people, if you do get stories from people, those can come in all the times, all the hours of the day. I mean, we really tell our schools, hey, we're checking our email during school hours, so you can send it whenever you want. If you want to send it at 9 o'clock at night after the football game, but unless it's a game to go to state, we can share that on our post the next day. Somebody
Hmm.
else can tweet it out with our school hashtag and get the news out there faster, but it is okay. So I think trying to plan the work, and then work the plan is really essential, because social media often can feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this right now. I gotta do this right now. So building in some of that, I think, around your schedule will really help. And it's really helped my team. I just had somebody on my team today say one of her biggest wins this year is she's getting better at turning it off on the weekends.
Hmm.
Ben, we don't post as much on the weekends because we don't drive as much engagement. And
Yeah.
guess what? The person who's posting gets to take a break too. Even though you can schedule things out to post on the weekends, you still have to check the engagement if you post something out then. So she's really gotten better at not checking her email on the weekends, and it's like it's going to be there when I get to work basically on Monday morning, and then I'm going to be able to respond. And so I'm so proud that some of that is going through, because if we can't do that, it is going to lead to burnout, and that you're not going to be able to sustain, because you'll go crazy. It's not healthy.
Yeah, sustain's one of our methodologies, and you've got to create a process and a pattern that has sustainability. Otherwise, you're never going to execute that strategic plan or whatever it is you put together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally believe that. So what's next for you? You've got the book out. You're hitting some speaking circuits. What's next for you?
Well, I am super proud of this book, and I want to get it in as many, hands across the country as possible. I'll be at NSPRA. I'm sure you'll be
I'll
there as
be there.
well. St. Louis. I'm doing a pre-seminar session and a breakout session there, but then also doing some book signing. I'm hitting quite a few SPRA chapters in the fall and spring. I've still got a few openings, so let me know if you want me to come and visit your SPRA chapter. Um, and then continuing with my podcast, that you guys have been on, and that's one of my favorite things to do is just talk and learn from folks um, about social media, because every time I have a conversation, I learn something brand new that I can apply to what I do. So that's awesome.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate the work you're doing. You've always been humble about the way you're really engaging with so many school PR folks and building a great business. So that's really been an encouragement to me and Jill and Heather, the rest of our team, and as well as the industry. So it's fun to see you really developing this, and obviously as the Content Generation Podcast, thank you for being a content creator.
Yes, I never would have guessed that I would be a content creator, but I guess I was in yearbook in high school, which was kind of, that was social media back in the day because we had captions and pictures. I am so excited to get to do what I do every day. And for all you listeners, for the team at Class Intercom, like, the work you're doing really matters because we're reaching hundreds and thousands of people with a positive story. So just keep it up.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea. It's been great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks so much.